Hello, my name is Lucyann Vierling, Chair of the Education and Workforce Development Task Force. It is my pleasure to discuss the team's 2022 research surrounding the pandemic's effects on K-12 learning, as well as post-secondary workforce development. The goal of this study is to secure greater understanding of these issues through a national and local lens. The timing of this report is appropriate as we are beginning to see short-term impacts of COVID-19 and have sufficient data to start to look forward as to what long-term consequences might surface. Educators, educational researchers, employers, and policymakers have been presented with perhaps the biggest challenge of their careers over the last 2 years. The following presentation is a blend of secondary research and primary research conducted through Lackawanna and Lucyann counties. Findings include recommendations for educators, administrators, employers, and workforce stakeholders to disseminate and consider when creating and implementing educational policy decisions while acknowledging the consequent connection between workforce and education. COVID and the subsequent lockdown have brought a sense of fear and anxiety around the globe. This phenomenon has led to short-term as well as long-term academic, psychosocial, and mental health implications. When schools shifted from the traditional school setting to attendance via the internet, families came under new stressors. It is increasingly clear that families depended on schools for much more than math and reading. Shelter, food, healthcare, and social well-being are all part of what children and adolescents, as well as their parents or guardians, depend on schools to provide. The 2021 school year has been like no other. By the end of that academic period, students were on average 5 months behind in math and 4 months behind in reading. High schoolers were more likely to drop out, and high school seniors, especially those from low-income families, were less likely to pursue post-secondary education. Findings consistently indicate that remote schooling was associated with fewer instructional opportunities and potentially poorer student outcomes compared with in-person schooling. These outcomes include less teacher-reported curriculum coverage, more teacher-reported student absenteeism, and lower principal-reported achievement in mathematics and English language arts. Although some children and adolescents will likely suffer no long-term consequences, COVID is expected to widen the already existing educational gap, specifically socioeconomic and children with learning differences. Disruptions to post-secondary pursuits may lead to unconventional educational paths, such as delayed enrollment and graduation. These paths result in immediate disadvantages and bring further negative consequences in student performance, completion, and postgraduate socioeconomic achievements. While a considerable percentage of college students are at a higher risk of developing mental health issues, the pandemic exacerbated their concerns even more. COVID-19 has changed education for learners of all ages. Preliminary data project educational losses at many levels and verify the increased anxiety and depression associated with the changes. Long-term data is yet to be determined. Guidance from oversight organizations regarding the safety and efficacy of new delivery modalities for education has been quickly forged. The COVID pandemic has affected and will continue to affect that delivery of knowledge and skills at all levels of education. Although many children and adult learners will likely compensate for this interruption of traditional educational services and will adapt to new modalities, some will struggle. When deciding how to spend federal funds, district and school leaders should rely on multiple data points collected now and in the following school year, including those related to absenteeism, performance on formative assessments, and students' potential non-academic needs. Researchers and policymakers should keep a close eye on instruction over the next school year to ensure that districts and schools have access to the right set of expertise and supports. researchers, policymakers, and district leaders should consider the extent to which any educators have to switch to technologies over the pandemic and plan to continue using in a post-pandemic era, supporting teaching and learning. Companies should reflect on what their role is. As companies are shifting their hiring focus from education to job skills, this is the time to increase work-based learning for all people, creating job shadowing, internships, and apprenticeships, which can take the form of compensated work to gain experience and earn credentials. Data sharing amongst intergovernmental and private industry partners can be used to increase transparency and solve to-work community problems such as unemployment, lack of job growth, and limited post-secondary education programming and curriculum that matches the small business and local industry jobs. Cross-sector partners can also create opportunities and collaborate on programming for internships and apprenticeships and create a pipeline for career readiness, upward mobility, and job success. Promote cross-sector collaboration by sharing data and staff resources, providing thought leadership, identifying approaches to help fill systematic gaps, and offering solutions to local challenges throughout government and community-based programs. Bring private sector employers to the table to explore the needs of local industries and identify where to expand post-secondary education and job skills training programs that work to improve the skill sets and address shortages in high-demand positions.